Number 11. MV Irish Trader Shipwreck. Known for its empty beaches and rare wildlife, Louth is Ireland's smallest county. Located north of Dublin, its 56-mile coastline feels like an entirely separate world from the rest of the country and like a step back in time. In addition to hosting some of Ireland's most seldom seen species, Louth is home to a rapidly decaying shipwreck called the MV Irish Trader. The vessel was carrying over 450 tons of fertilizer from the English port of Sharpness to the Irish port city of Drogheda in 1974 when it encountered a brutal storm and ran aground. The exact circumstances of the wreck remain somewhat of a mystery to this day. For nearly 50 years now, what's left of the Irish Trader has sat deteriorating on the beach at Baltray, a small village consisting of just 132 residents. Its condition continues to worsen as returning storms batter the decrepit vessel, reducing it to little more than a rotting hunk of metal. Most of the ship is gone, and what little remains will soon be either buried or washed away. Writer Darren McLaughlin visited the wreck several times, capturing a series of photos that reveal its rapid demise. The last images he took in 2018 show a mangled, rusting heap that has become covered in moss as it sinks into the sand. Number 10. Dozens of dead whales. Located on the northern shore of New Zealand's South Island, Farewell Spit Beach is notorious for its whale strandings. In the latest incident, a pod of 36 pilot whales found themselves washed ashore. Rangers from the country's Department of Conservation scrambled alongside workers and volunteers from the wildlife charity Project Jonah New Zealand to get as many of the whales back into the water as they could. Unfortunately, very few could be saved. By the time help arrived, only 5 of the animals were still alive. At least 31 whales died, including 2 of the 5 that had been returned to the water. Members of a local Maori organization representing the country's indigenous people came and blessed the carcasses, which were left in a cordoned-off part of the beach to decompose naturally. While the recent stranding was undoubtedly tragic, it was much smaller than some past incidents at Farewell Spit Beach. In 2017, an estimated 400 whales washed up on the shore. There have been at least 10 mass strandings at the beach over the last 15 years. What do you think causes these strandings? Share your theories below. Number 9. Gigantic pipes. 2017 proved to be an eventful year for England's Norfolk coast. Just months after $60 million worth of cocaine washed ashore, a dozen massive plastic pipe segments appeared on the beach. They were 8 feet in diameter, with the longest pipe measuring 1,574 feet long. The Titanic tubes were en route from Norway to Algeria when the ship that they were traveling on collided with a container ship. They became loose and fell into the water, and the waves carried them to dry land. The Maritime and Coast Guard Agency reassured the public that the pipes did not pose any threats to public health or safety, but the Norwegian company that manufactured the stranded goods, Pipelife, advised people to keep their distance to avoid the possibility of being crushed. The statement came after social media users began posting photos of themselves standing on top of the pipes. Pipelife export manager Trygve Blomster told The Guardian that these tubes are especially dangerous near water, which can move them around without warning. Not only would it be extremely painful to fall off one of the pipes, it wouldn't take much for the waves to roll over a person. Thankfully, nobody was harmed and the mess was cleaned up with no damage done to the environment. Number 8. Byzantine Pillar. During routine patrol in the Israeli port city of Ashdod recently, 2 policemen discovered something protruding from the sand. They notified the proper authorities and archaeologists were sent to the scene, where they identified the object as a 1,500-year-old marble pillar. Thought to be part of a large Byzantine-era church located nearby, the buried artifact has been exposed by recent rains. The 5.2-long-foot pillar was in one piece, making it an especially rare find according to Avi Levy, an archaeologist with the Israel Antiquities Authority. He further explained that the marble was sourced from somewhere outside Israel and that further tests are needed to determine where it came from. The Byzantine church compound was part of an ancient city where excavations have been ongoing since 2013. Known as Ashdod Yam, it was one of the most important Israeli coastal cities of its time period, facilitating the trade of raw materials, food, and other products. In addition to the church, the settlement contained a fortress, several public buildings, and a main road. Number 7. Mysterious creature. Ian Kettle was walking his dog along a beach in Merseyside, England recently when he spotted what he initially thought was a dead dolphin. His miniature schnauzer Dylan had run off and started rolling around in something. When the pup refused to return to his owner, Ian went to retrieve him, which is when he passed by the 6-foot-long, partially decomposed creature. A nearby beachgoer told the man that they had also noticed the animal and had contacted the local environmental authorities. Others who had seen the carcass said that it had been there a while. Ian told reporters that he was surprised that the creature had ended up so far inland. But as it turned out, it wasn't as unusual as he thought. A spokesperson for Green Sefton, the agency tasked with upkeeping the Sefton shoreline, said that it wasn't uncommon for marine animals to appear in the area, especially during particularly high tides, which were happening around the time the remains were discovered. The representative added that the carcass was thought to be a dolphin of some type. Number 6. Lots of plastic tubing. Beachgoers in Cape Cod were baffled when large amounts of yellow plastic tubing began washing ashore last year. It continued to appear, but nobody knew what it was until Laura Ludwig, who manages the Center for Coastal Studies Marine Debris and Plastic Programs, identified it as shock tubing. The material was used to transmit an electrical charge to underwater explosives during a Boston Harbor dredging project that ran from last June until January. In a statement, the Army Corps of Engineers said that the project's contractor was attentive to the need to clean up the tubing, but that a lot of it got lost in the water due to deep channel conditions and traffic in the harbor. Cleanup efforts are ongoing, according to Army Corps Marine ecologist Todd Randall, who told the Cape Cod Times that the agency was exploring ways to prevent something like this from happening in the future. He said that there were several ideas being considered, including contract requirements for cleanup, as well as better ways to contain materials during underwater projects. Number 5. Sacrificed animals. On 5 separate occasions throughout 2021, police found headless birds on the beach on Tybee Island in the state of Georgia. The most recent discovery happened in October. Just weeks earlier, a visitor to the island stumbled upon 2 decapitated roosters along with 6 plastic cups with dried blood in them. Lieutenant Emery Randolph told local station WSB-TV that the evidence appeared to be ritualistic in nature, but he didn't know whether the birds were beheaded by members of an organized religion or in some other context. He further added that animal sacrifices are legal under federal law when it comes to religion. But even if the practice isn't against the law, locals and tourists alike were put off by the disturbing discoveries. Savannah resident Jennifer Hoffman said that she would prefer if people performed their animal sacrifices on their church grounds. Her husband Brooks echoed the sentiment, stating that he doesn't want it happening on a public beach. Tybee Island police said that the evidence of animal sacrifices have been appearing on the beach for several years now and that they continue to investigate any reports that come in. What would you do if you stumbled across something like this on the beach? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Number 4. Massive amounts of drugs. During a stroll along the shore near Florida's Pelican Island National Wildlife Refuge in late February, a beachgoer spotted a 35-gallon garbage bag filled with what appeared to be a large amount of drugs. Deputies from the Indian River County Sheriff's Office worked with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to retrieve the bag, which they found wrapped in burlap. They determined its contents to be a 45-pound heroin shipment that had apparently failed to reach its destination. Officials turned the evidence over to the U.S. Border Patrol for further investigation. Sheriff's Deputy Ron Adamson explained that the heroin's packaging was not meant to be waterproof. Instead, he said, a drug runner likely threw it overboard for some reason, or the vessel transporting it took on water. But there had been no recent reports of boat emergencies, making the latter possibility unlikely. It's not entirely unusual for drug smugglers to ditch their product if they believe they've been detected by the Coast Guard or to lose it for some other reason. But it's also not an everyday thing for someone to find such a huge quantity of drugs sitting on a beach. Number 3. Bizarre fish. Eric High was walking along Revere Beach in Massachusetts recently when he spotted a huge 5-foot-long fish washed up on the beach completely out of the water. He noticed that it was moving its gills and realized it was still alive. High described the fish as having a strange snout and looking like a dinosaur. It also had a rope around its tail. High dragged the creature back into the water, but noticed that it was still unwell. He posted photos on social media in the hopes that someone could help identify the species. Experts speculated that it was an Atlantic sturgeon. The ancient species typically grows between 6 and 9 feet long, but can reach up to 13 feet. High's description of the fish as dinosaur-like is actually somewhat fitting, since sturgeons have been around since the time of the dinosaurs. But the critically endangered species' 200 million year existence may soon come to an end as it struggles to survive the effects of human activity. Unfortunately, the fish that High found died. Wildlife officials tried to save it, but they were unsuccessful. The rope on the end of its tail suggests that someone had caught the fish and was handling it in an illegal way. At the time the discovery was announced, experts said that they were in the process of retrieving its remains so that they could study it and learn more about how it died. Number 2. Toxic tar balls. The pristine Mediterranean coastline that Israel is famous for became littered with dozens of tons of thick clumps of tar in early 2021. Authorities determined that the globules came from a ship that was leaking oil, posing a serious environmental hazard and a major threat to humans and wildlife. The source of the pollution was a mystery. Civilians were told to avoid a 120-mile stretch of coastline as investigators worked to get to the bottom of the situation and clean up the mess, which left birds and turtles covered in oil. An autopsy on a 55-foot-long fin whale that was found dead on a beach in the country's southern region revealed oil inside the animal's body. Israel's Nature and Parks Authority described the ordeal as one of the most serious ecological disasters in the country's history. Shortly after the toxic blobs appeared, Environmental Protection Minister Ghila Gamliel reassured the public that officials were working to identify the vessel responsible for the spill. They believed that the spill occurred due to a recent storm and were investigating 9 ships that were in the region at the time. The Israeli government also stated that it was considering pursuing legal action against the offender. Things became heated as theories and allegations spread. Gamliel implied that whoever was responsible had acted maliciously, in other words, with bad intent or out of neglect. Many suspected that an illegal vessel was most likely the culprit. At one point, a Greek tanker called the Minerva Helen was accused of causing the disaster. The ship's owner adamantly denied being involved, but Israeli authorities carried out a raid just to be sure. They found no evidence that the vessel had any connections to the spill and ruled out numerous other ships that had fallen under their suspicion. Number 1. Dead cow. Residents in Hancock County, Mississippi were shocked to discover a dead cow washed up in the Gulf Coast on Waveland last year. They awoke to find the lifeless animal on a beach near the Silver Slipper Casino. Local station WLOX spoke with county officials who said that there were several nearby properties owned by livestock owners and that their animals tend to escape frequently. But they were unsure of where the dead cow came from. The remains were removed from the scene using a front loader and a dump truck and taken to an area where large animals are often buried. An equally perplexing situation happened in 2016 when 2 goats, a hog, and around 6 chickens were found along a beach in Biloxi, Mississippi. There were no signs of abuse, leading authorities to believe that the animals had died during severe flooding in neighboring Louisiana and floated over to the Biloxi shoreline via the Gulf of Mexico. Well, that's all for now. Thanks so much for watching. Interested in learning more about bizarre beach discoveries? Let me know in the comments below, and while you're at it, be sure to subscribe. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time for another amazing video right here on American Eye.